Hey guys, how's it going? Today I have Captain L. I just want to say right off the bat, I feel like the last time we've met in person, competitively things have changed drastically, it seems like, because you were a Pikachu main and you played on a Gamecube controller, and now you play on the hitbox and you main Sheik. So I guess the thing I want to ask is, do you think that the hitbox is the future for competitive Ultimate, or are you just like experimenting with it?
I absolutely think that it's the future for me, at least. I think that for a lot of people, the limitations of a GameCube controller aren't a huge issue, especially if you're playing like a character that doesn't have a ton of angles that they need for the recovery, or just is a less technical character. But I think that if you're playing like a faster game with like more minute differences in drift being relevant, I think that a digital controller is just like absolutely 100% the way to go. And even when I'm playing like casual games now, sometimes I'm just like, man, analog joysticks suck. Why would anyone like choose to do this? So to me, it's like, I don't even ever consider going back to GameCube controller. If you ever ask me like, what were your reasons to switch? My counter argument is usually just like, what are the reasons to stay to a GameCube controller? It's just like, I don't think that it's like optimal in any other way. The only reason to stay would just be because you don't really need the advantages if you're playing like a slower paced character.
Okay. So you think because of Sheik, you think it's like more optimal to play the hitbox with her?
Yes, 100%. Especially Sheik. In fact, I'm very thankful that she does have a couple of techniques that are made quite a bit easier on the Smashbox, because otherwise I might have never considered it in the first place. But what really like drove me to switch in the first place was I was kind of getting very frustrated with Ultimate, and mostly its lack of movement options on the ground. When I was trying to kind of figure out which characters might have ways around the limitations on the ground, I was like, oh, Sheik has like C bounces from Smash 4, right? But they made them like noticeably harder in Ultimate because you have to do like a diagonal C-stick input, and you also have to flick it because in Ultimate the C-stick registers for a couple frames instead of just one like it did in Smash 4. So I was like, okay, well, what are ways that I could make this technique a little bit more consistent? I tried out Smashbox, and then that was like the original driver to switch. But everything else that came after that, I was like, oh my god, why did I never consider this earlier? This is great.
Okay. Do you feel like you would have transitioned over to Smashbox if you were to stay with like Pikachu, or do you think this is like an inevitable thing that was going to happen?
I'll be 100% honest. I think that I probably would have actually retired if I'd stuck with Pikachu. So yeah, it probably was inevitable. I had actually considered it in 2018, oddly enough. But at the time, I decided, it's probably going to take too long to learn, and there's like a major every other weekend. If you remember, like early 2018, it was kind of wild. Or 2019, sorry, 2019. It really does remind me a lot of Beto in some ways, where in Beto, if you had like the C stick, it would override whatever analog direction you had pressed. And in kind of the same way, if you have second input priority, if you're like already holding left and you press right, then the right input overrides the left. So it does have a lot of similarities to a control scheme that I'm already used to. I don't know, I just think the ability to like instantly go from right to left without having to cross over neutral is just so good for so many things, like ground movement, but also air mobility. Like a lot of times if you're trying to like weave in and out in the air, those dead frames you have while you're moving your stick from left to right, they don't seem like a big deal, but like why would you have them if you don't need them?
Yeah. Okay. So I mean, for you, especially because you're a incredibly precise player in the way that you do things. So
I try to be.
Yeah. So I think just your explanation makes a lot of sense. And just being able to utilize things mobility-wise and make certain things easier, yeah, it just makes sense.
There was one tournament, I forget exactly which one it was, I want to say Gommel, where my analog stick on my GameCube controller, it had worn down so much that like the angle between like straight horizontal and diagonally down wasn't even sharp enough for like quick attack to get the two angles, because it has to be like at least 30 degrees between your first and your second one, right? And the control stick had worn down so much that it wasn't getting the second one, and I was just getting so many like single quick attack miss inputs. So just the fact that I will literally never have to worry about that again because it's all digital is like, it's a lot of peace of mind while playing, because you don't ever have to be like, oh, is my controller like something unexpected going to happen, and all of a sudden like the angle isn't the same as it was before. That's just never a concern anymore.
Okay. Also, that sucks.
it wasn't a huge deal. There were some controller modders at the place, so I was able to get it fixed and borrow one for like the 2 sets where it wasn't quite ready yet. But yes, it did suck knowing that like, holy shit, my controller might not be usable when I need it.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm assuming with Hitbox, you know, managing it is like significantly easier than the game controller. It probably has a longer life too.
Yep, all the buttons. They do like, I think 1 million presses or something. Actually, that might be an overestimate, but basically, even if an individual button wears down or stops working, you can just swap out one button for like $3 or something, and the whole controller is still perfectly fine. Whereas usually, if like one piece goes on a GameCube controller, either you need to like pay someone who knows a lot about them to completely swap out the stick box, or what more commonly people will do is just get a whole new controller.
Okay. All right. I guess let's go a little bit more into your character change, because once again, you were Pikachu main and you switched over to Sheik. So, I mean, from what it sounds like, it's not necessarily that you think Pikachu's a bad character. You probably just got bored with him and you just don't like how he is compared to Smash 4 Pikachu. I'm guessing that's what it is.
Yeah, that's definitely part of it. It doesn't feel like the same idea. Obviously, I'm not gonna be a super contrarian and say that Pikachu's bad. However, I will say that one thing that's kind of frustrating to me as a player is playing a character that I think is overrated. So I'm not going to be like, oh, Pikachu's like bottom 20. Obviously, I know that he's like insanely good, but when I see people saying like uncontested first in the game, it's not even close, and meanwhile I think, well, I mean, he totally does have flaws. It's kind of hard to try to balance two things where on the one hand I'm trying to be like, no, Pikachu's not that good, but I'm also trying to win. So it's like, if I win, then I don't hit this goal, and if I lose, then I lose, but I can be like, see, Pikachu's not that good. It's just like those two goals don't work in conjunction with each other. Whereas I think that Sheik is like insanely good, and I want everyone else to think that she's insanely good. So every time I go into a set with her, it's like, if I win, I get to satisfy both goals, and if I lose, then it's like I can work on two things at once.
Okay, that sounds good. I'm also with you. I think that Sheik is very, very good. I feel like it's one of those things where she is very underrated at mid, even high level play, but like once you get to a top level, you get to see more of what Sheik is actually capable of, and you're just like, why is it more people invested into this character?
Yeah, that's for sure. But I do think that there are a lot of people who are, after quarantine, I see so many results threads. Maybe it's because I'm biased and people retweet like good Sheik results, but I see a lot of Sheiks on the come up, and it makes me super happy that like the character is starting to get the gameplay that she deserves. Plus, I also think that she's like super hyped to watch, and I enjoy playing against her as well, so I like to think that she just makes the whole ecosystem a better place.
Okay, I like that. Okay, so is Sheik better than Pikachu in your eyes?
Maybe. I think that I've made a lot of peace in stopping caring about like exact tier list placements. So do I think that Pikachu and Sheik are in the same ballpark? Yes. Do I think that Sheik is necessarily better or worse than Pikachu by some specific number of character spots? I don't really know. Like, I am more focused on the positives of Sheik, and while I was playing Pikachu, I was more focused on the negatives of Pikachu. So just like in my head, sure, maybe I think that Sheik should be better than Pikachu long term, but ultimately it's something that I have been able to find a bit of peace by not caring about as much.
Okay, I actually really like that, because I think it's one of those things where a lot of people put too much emphasis on like how exactly much better or worse a character is, and if a character is in like the same like ballpark of good, it doesn't really matter, especially in a game like Ultimate. I know a lot of people think that Sheik is probably one of, if not the hardest character to play at a higher level in Ultimate. What do you think about that? Do you agree or disagree?
Hardest? I don't know about that. I do think that she has like a really steep entry curve in a sense, where like a lot of characters, you kind of just need to understand how they play neutral and 1 or 2 kill confirms, and that'll be good enough to just kind of understand how to play the character. With Sheik, I really think that you do need to learn your kill confirms, otherwise you're gonna struggle a ton early on. Like her neutral is simple enough that you don't need to just like study, oh, how exactly are Sheik's like getting around her mobility limitations or anything, because she doesn't really have those, right? So in a sense, it's like not that hard to start playing Sheik and feel like you're doing fine. But I think that actually getting the results, especially in a tournament environment where there's a lot of pressure and like missing one confirm can be the difference of like killing at 100 versus killing at 200. I think that that's where the real difficulty lies. And that's also what I'm going through right now, where when I'm playing in friendlies and like lower pressure matches, I'm just like doing all the confirms and the kills at like really low percents. But then in tournament, I kind of freeze up a little bit and I'm getting really stressed and I'm like, oh man, I gotta hit this one confirm, and then I drop it and then I go on tilt. So I can say that mentally, Sheik is probably one of the most difficult characters to like stay calm during a match with. But like executionally, there are other characters who are probably on par with her. That was probably like all over the place for an answer, but like I guess what I'm trying to get at is difficulty is not just like a linear measurement that you can be like, this character is easy, this character is hard. And Sheik is very difficult in some places, but fairly intuitive in other places. So yeah.
Okay, yeah, no, I like that answer. I definitely feel like a lot of people forget how good of a neutral game she has, because that's like what you were saying. You don't really need to like think too hard about her neutral. She's incredibly fast, has good frame data, solid projectile, stuff like that. Her combo game, it could be very punishing if you're not able to maximize your punish, especially like, you know, closing stocks out. So do you only play Sheik now, or, you know, because you used to have a Jigglypuff, you had Pichu, I mean, you could still use Pikachu, I'm assuming, or did you just like get rid of all of them for Sheik?
I pretty much got rid of all of them. Like, I haven't actually ever played Pikachu on a Smashbox, and I think that I've maybe like touched Pichu like once, but for the most part, I don't intend to play any other characters ever. If I was ever going to have a secondary specifically for matchups, it would probably be Palu, because I would want it to be like a very low investment character that just kind of like completely shuts down matchups that I wouldn't otherwise want to play. But that's pretty much it. And even then, like for the foreseeable future, I won't be picking Palu at all in tournament, just because while there's like no PGR or anything and everything's kind of like lower stakes, I would rather be just like completely pushing the limitations of what I can and can't do with Sheik. And then eventually, if I get to the point where I like travel to a major and I'm against like a Pac-Man or something, and I'm like, man, I cannot do this matchup, or even if I can do this matchup, I would much rather just like tilt it heavily in my favor. That would be the like one time that I would consider really leaning on Palu.
All right, yeah, that is a smart idea. Like, there's not really any incredibly high stakes events happening at the moment, so you know, just grinding out Sheik and stuff like that is good. Palu is an incredibly easy character to pick up, so I doubt it'll take you much time to get that down. I've noticed that you've been streaming on YouTube, and I guess my question is, what made you gravitate towards going on YouTube over Twitch? Because I feel like you know, a lot of people just stream on Twitch. I
would say that it was probably just because I knew that I had a bunch of residual subscribers from when I made a couple of meme videos back in like 2019 or whatever. So I was just like, hey, why not go to YouTube? I don't know, it was a bit of a toss-up. I also have like enough internet to actually take advantage of the higher bandwidth of YouTube, so I was like, why not? It seemed also easier because then I wouldn't have to like worry about uploading VODs separately to YouTube because it's just automatically there. Am I super happy with the choice? I don't know. I've thought about whether or not I should be going to Twitch anyway. Being able to browse by game is actually really nice, and a lot of the features that Twitch have are pretty good for gaming content specifically. I will also say though that one of the other factors that like drove me to YouTube in the first place was there's the Japanese Sheik. I'm probably gonna butcher his name, but Saichi. He streams on YouTube, and I would get like pop-up notifications on my phone every time he went live, and I'm like, man, this is super convenient. I should make sure that I stream on a platform that just kind of automatically gives people notifications without them asking for it. So I don't know, I guess like intrusive notifications made me think, hey, YouTube's probably a good way to go.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, I think that YouTube is going to, you know, do better and better in the future streaming wise, so makes sense. You kind of touched on like you made videos in the past, like around the beginning of Ultimate. They were like, you had some really good videos. I was actually like a pretty big fan of your channel. I was just wondering, do you ever intend on making more videos in the way you did? You know, like the turbo teabag or the Greninja pairing types of videos.
I don't like those videos. I feel like I sold my soul a little bit to make them. It really does feel like my own personal who can go under Smashville video. Maybe I'll make another video like that. In the meantime, I'm definitely trying to start working again on like some serious YouTube content. I'm not 100% sure how well it'll do, but there is a lot of stuff. both with Smashbox and with Sheik, that I want to get some videos out on. I think the first one that I go for is a Sheik planking guide, because I think that, you know me, I love the ledge, and I want to kind of show off how absolutely absurd Sheik's options at ledge are. I'm not sure if you saw the GIF that I tweeted on the other week when Kazuya came out, of his like little funny walk at ledge thing where you cancel the teeter over and over again. But if I was ever going to make another teabagging style video, it would be about that.
Okay. I guess I just want to say, it's not just like the teabagging video, you also have like just really good knowledge about the game.
I will say a lot of those were kind of optimistic about like how useful they would be, but I figured better to have the info out there, and even if literally no one uses it, at least it's kind of a known thing. I kind of hope that more people go back and check out those videos and are like, oh, this is actually useful. But I'm not super optimistic, because I know that it's a bad stereotype, but like the Brawl Smash 4 Ultimate scenes generally tend to care a little bit less about tech than the Melee scene might.
Yeah, I mean, what I will say is that whoever wants to know about it will, and I think once it gets to a point where the game will last long enough, there will be a point where people will eventually have to do it, or, you know, like all the advanced techniques are going to be like mandatory, I feel like, at a top level.
Specifically, like a couple videos that Gamer made, like the parry footstool and also like the footstool farming. I do both of those like all the time, and I know that like Charlie does footstool out of shield and parry footstool stuff all the time, and I think that those are like absolutely going to be essential for at least our characters. I don't know about like every character, but that is the type of thing that I want to see more people do in the future.
I will say I've definitely been working on the footstool out of shield. I mess it up a lot though. I need to get the training mod pack, but
you don't have that yet?
No, I don't have it.
Dude, it's broken. It's broken.
Yeah, I know. I guess, like, long story short, I'm debating on getting it, but then I'm paranoid about Nintendo, like, breaking my Switch.
I think as long as you have one of the older ones, it's actually so hard to get bricked. Like, if you have the RCM exploit, I think that it's basically impossible to mess it up so badly that you can't recover it. Worst case, you get banned from online, but I mean, hey, Wi-Fi error is over, so that wouldn't be so bad.
Yeah, that's true. All right, I'll give it a try then. I have an older Switch, so okay. So you're in the Pacific Northwest area. You know, like, well, you used to go to a good amount of like Washington, Oregon tournaments, as well as tournaments in Vancouver. I guess just being from that region, I feel like that particular region doesn't get as much exposure as, let's say, like East Coast Canada, where there's like, you know, there's Riddles, Black Twins, and like JW, like those players. Do you feel like there are a lot of hidden bosses that could potentially upset, you know, like a lot of top level PGR players, or there will be like in the upcoming future when offline events or offline majors are like more consistent?
So I'm not gonna speak for Washington or Oregon right now, just because I haven't really been following their scene over quarantine. From what I understand, though, there are a bunch of like definite up and coming players right now. It's not just the Pandarian show anymore, but I will let someone from Washington or Oregon speak to that more. From BC in particular, there's two players who stand out as like hidden bosses that no one knows about that are gonna absolutely rock the world. The first one is Ouch, who's not even that hidden anymore, because I think that he beat Wizzy and got like third at Battle of BC. The problem is he's like 15 years old or something, so he can't like travel a ton. I think that he's absolutely absurd as a player and is gonna be like making crazy upsets once he can actually travel. He plays Wolf really similar to Charlie, where it's like, if he gets that falling fair, you're going for a ride. Other than that, there's also Snow, who has always been a player that like everyone around here knows is like low-key godlike. It's just he never took the game seriously. But as soon as like quarantine ended, he was like, you know what? I want to go try hard mode. And he got third, losing to Ouch and Lemon, but he upset Big D along the way. So I think that he's gonna be improving at like a crazy rate, because he's basically having like grinding Smash Fests like every day and going super tryhard with like taking notes and doing VOD review, which is something that he never did before. He was the type of player who would just like literally try to post while he played and just like meme with whatever options he thought was the funniest. And now he's just going like full on straight edge, Lucina only, playing like as optimal as he can and just ledge trapping your stock away. And it's nuts. I think that he's gonna like completely dominate as soon as he hits the next level and starts traveling.
Yeah, I mean, as a Wolf player, I definitely know about Ouch. He is amazing. I was sad he didn't compete in the Smash Roll Tour. Yeah.
Dude, okay, no shade to him at all, but he had like the stupidest mindset ever, where he thought that he was washed and he was like, man, there's no way. I don't want to just go and embarrass myself. And then the day before Smash World Tour, me and him and a bunch of other like BC Old Guard top players, we had like a round robin with each other, and he just went 7-0. Like, I don't even think that he had a game 5 with anyone. He just like completely dominated, and he hasn't even lost a set since the 3 offline events we've had are back. So the fact that he thought that he was washed and didn't enter that tournament still annoys me to this day, because he would have been like free qualifying. Like, no question at all. So I love him, but like, man, that was frustrating to watch when he was just like, oh, I'm not good anymore, guys. I'm so washed. And meanwhile, he hasn't dropped a set in like a year.
Hey, I mean, he's 15, you know? Younger
If you're
people...
watching this, believe in yourself.
Yeah, I was gonna say, younger people typically don't have the best mindset when it comes to competing. So...
The funny thing is, in-game, his mindset has always seemed like absolutely rock solid. Like, he doesn't go on tilt, he doesn't like get nervous and start playing bad. It's just outside of the game is where I feel like he has the mindset problems.
That's interesting, yeah. Okay, so I wanted to also say, Snow, is he new? Because, I mean, I've gone to Vancouver.
He's been a Smash 4 player for like ever. I don't even know if he ever made it on to one of our rankings, but again, he would like, he was the type to unironically go random in tournament, or like specifically pick Ganon. Once, I think picked Ganon against me, and like, I just comboed the shit out of him for like first stock, and then he Ganon-sided me when I got lazy with an edge guard, and then he was like pixels away from Ganon-side me on the second stock, and obviously it was 2 stock, so he always like memed that set about how he almost 0 to death to me twice. But like, yeah, now that he's actually playing just like a fundamentally solid top tier and like going full tryhard, it's scary how like, I feel very vindicated, because I've always thought that he's like an absolutely insanely talented player, but just like never really wanted to try. So seeing him do well and kind of like validate what I've always thought has made me really happy. And also he's like a super close friend of mine, so I'm also just like super stoked to see my friend finally like getting the recognition that he deserves and like going full tryhard. For a while there was like a trend in BC, and I think a bunch of other regions, where people would like make their prediction of what the first power ranking back would look like, and I put him as first as my hot take. I don't know if I stand by first considering how absurd Ouch is, but I would still like to see it, and I absolutely think that Snow could do it.
Okay, well, I mean, hopefully, at the very least, if he doesn't get first, like, hopefully, you know, him and Ouch could push each other to get better.
And I think BC as a whole also, everyone is kind of going like really try hard these days. Like our weeklies fill up within, actually this one is 63 entrants instead of 64, but for the most part they've always filled up within like half an hour. Okay. So I think that everyone is like really determined to improve. The friendly setups are still like going well into the tournament. It's not like people just lose and then leave. Okay,
well, that's cool to hear. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit more about you and your playstyle. So, I mean, you kind of mentioned it earlier. You have an incredibly defensive playstyle. I've definitely seen some sets of you in previous games, probably in Ultimate too, where matches were incredibly close to going to time if they did not go to time. So I just want to ask, what's your approach to, I guess, playing that way? And do you feel like that playstyle kind of prevents you from like being as punish heavy as you could be?
So here's the thing. I definitely have a lot of games that go close to time. In fact, since we've only had 2 weeklies, and I've already lost to timeouts 3 times. But I would say that my playstyle in general is getting close to closing the gap, but never closing the rest of it. It's like I'll always try to stay like right outside of burst range zone, but I'll rarely ever make that like final thing. So if I'm against a player who is willing to close that gap, in general, I think that my games actually go at like a fairly normal pace. It's not like I'm just going to be egregiously slow in every game and try to slow down no matter who the opponent is. But if the opponent also refuses to close that final tiny gap, or worse, if they just like try to run away when I get close to closing that final gap, that's when it'll go to time. So like, if you watch me against an aggressive player, it's not like I will intentionally try to slow down the match as much as possible. Maybe some of my opponents will disagree. The one person who I do that against is Big D, but that's because Ice Climbers just have insane buttons up close and I don't want to deal with that. Yeah, I don't know. I would rather react to options than do the first one. So that is what leads me to kind of just stay at like basically Sheik dash attack range. And I have a lot of fun playing that way. I think that it's a very fun little game of inches rather than kind of like jousting analogy that I've heard before, where people like kind of run at each other with their big strong hitboxes and then like play on reaction after that. I would rather do kind of the short mid-range whiff punish game, which sometimes leads to timeouts if the opponent is refusing to make the first move.
the way you ended it, it basically says like, okay, it's my fault, but it's not really my fault.
People can put the blame on whoever they want. I've always said it takes two to time out. Sure, I'll be willing to be one of them, but I'm never going to force it on my own, except against Big D.
I just want to say, so a lot of people absolutely hate that kind of playstyle. I don't hate it. I definitely appreciate it. I feel like it takes like a lot of mental focus in order to do that for as long as you do. Another question to ask is, do you feel like because of that, you're less likely to go on tilt? Because again, I feel like you probably constantly focus like the entire time, which could be incredibly draining.
I think that I still absolutely go on tilt, but it's mostly due to execution errors of my own, like missing a confirm that I knew that I had, or getting like grenade when I meant to do needles and then getting punished hard for it because that move is like minus 1,000 on hit. So I definitely am not tilt proof like by any means. However, I don't think, oh, never mind, I'll backpedal. I still also go on tilt when my opponent's camp. I'm probably the biggest hypocrite in the world because I get really frustrated when people play like super defensive against me, even though I'll do it right back to them. But I don't know, I don't really like playing against zoners who make it a long-range matchup. I'd rather have a defensive mid-range matchup instead of defensive long-range matchup, if that's some like super bad mental gymnastics to justify my own playstyle.
Oh, okay. That's actually interesting because, like, again, I feel like because you play that way, I wouldn't imagine you getting tilted if someone does to you.
Yeah. At the most recent weekly, in Game 3 against the Villager, he picked Town and City, and he grew a tree like on maybe 2/3 of the way into the stage and just stood behind it. And I was like, man, what do I do? I can't needle through this. He just throws Lloyd rockets at me. It's like that was absolutely putting on tilt. The fact that it wasn't even like he was standing there throwing projectiles the whole time. There would be long periods of time where he would just stand there and not do anything. And I'm like, I can't approach from above. Like he's got turnips and like all sorts of other options to like beat that. So it was very tilting for me being in that situation, which is again something that I need to like work on as a player, is learning how to deal with zoners instead of just doing my usual stubborn, oh, I'll get close enough that you can close the gap and then we can like actually fight. It's something that I'm keenly aware that I need to work on, and the first step is not getting tilted when I have to play against a zoner like that.
Okay, question. So I guess to kind of talk more about that, would you ever be willing to push aside the defensive play and like just go like all in, like just be super aggressive to kind of, I guess, develop more of a playstyle to deal with those type of players?
Oh yeah, 100%. I have like no weird like personal rules about how I'm gonna force myself to play. I'm always going to play to win. It so happens that I think the best way to play to win, in a lot of matchups at least, is to kind of stay at that like just outside of burst range and then punish from there as soon as they commit to something, which is why I think that historically I've actually always struggled versus zoners, not just as Sheik. I was able to kind of hide it a little bit as Pikachu because quick attack was kind of insane as a anti-zoning tool. But now that I'm missing that, it's really becoming like super obvious that like, oh, I have a huge problem with people who will not get close to me. So it's something that I'm working on. I'm trying to review footage anytime I can of like Sheik versus a zoner.
Okay, so you have been streaming. You talked about making more content. You've been going to events. I'm assuming you're gonna start traveling once you're able to for offline events.
I'm registered for like every major that's come up so far. I think the only one that I haven't registered for that's been like a big deal was the second Riptide or whatever, the one that's in Texas. I think that's the only one that I haven't registered for. But I'm going to the Ohio Riptide, I'm going to Main Stage, I'm going to Let's Make Big Moves, I'm going to Port Priority as soon as that one's open, and I'm going to CEO.
Okay. I guess, so I know in the beginning of Ultimate you were doing full-time Smash, and then you kind of decided to put Smash on the side. Are you doing full-time Smash again, or are you just like kind of just like getting your major itch out of the way?
I'm definitely not doing full-time Smash in the sense of I'm still working a 9-to-5 job. That's why I'm at a WeWork office right now. However, I am still trying to do both of them as much as I can. If by some absolute miracle or by me working extremely hard, I'm able to start like pulling top eights at majors or something insane. I can't even do that at locals right now. But if I am and it becomes like a viable full-time option, I'll consider it again. But for now, I think that I would rather stay safe, I suppose, and keep a job. The job is like my main thing, with Smash as like a dream again. I think that I always had more fun with it like that. Where I was working a full-time job and I was like keeping Smash as like my passionate hobby that I was like really trying to invest as much free time as I had in. As soon as it became Smash was the job, then I felt like I had no free time hobby to dream about, if that makes sense. Where it was like the fun part of my life was missing, because previously it was like work and then Smash was the fun part. Now it's like Smash and then where's the fun part? I guess that was kind of a non-answer, since it ended with, I would love to do it, but I'm not going to do it now. But yeah, I'm pretty much just playing by ear at this point. If it comes to a point where I think that it's a good idea again, I'm not opposed to it, but now is not the time.
Okay, I mean, totally makes sense. I think I get what you're saying. Like, doing Smash full time can be frustrating. And, you know, like for a lot of people, Smash is kind of that thing that you use to run away from the stressfulness of like job or like anything that's going on in your life. And when Smash becomes the stress, it's like, where do I go to like run away from my problems? Yeah, so I could get that.
Yeah, in a sense, I would say that the previous time that I was doing Smash full time, by the end of it, I felt a little bit trapped, where it's like I didn't feel like I had much to fall back on. Whereas if I ever get to a point now where I'm just like, man, my results have been sucking, I don't feel like motivated to go to majors anymore or something like that, then it's just like, okay, well, I can put it on the back burner for a while. It's not going to kill me. Back then, it would have been like, if I had tried to put Smash on the back burner, then to continue that metaphor, I would have had nothing on the front burner, and it would have just been burning time and feeling bad about it.
I think that's it. I don't have anything else to ask, I think. Unless you want to like add a comment to anything.
As a general message to people, rethink why it is you don't want to use a Smashbox or other digital controller, because I think that if you really try to quantify like what are the pros and cons, you'll realize that there basically aren't any cons. A lot of people say price, but I would say that I spent more on Gamecube controllers because they don't last forever and need to be repaired a bunch than I will on the Smashbox. Yeah, it's kind of like the last controller you'll ever need to buy, minus some like small button upgrades. So it does end up being an economical option as well, just kind of with like the higher upfront cost.
Okay. Yeah, so there you go. If you want to check out Smashbox, do that. I guess I should also add, you're currently sponsored by Smashbox.
Yeah, so I have a contract with them. I consider myself a player for them, though I'm not 100% sure like how explicit that is one way or the other. But I also just like, I love the team at Hitbox. They're all like super chill. So regardless of like how that ends up going forward, I'll be perfectly happy. Even if they end up being like, hey, I don't know if we can like really go forward for much longer, it's not gonna like stop me from playing the Smashbox or anything. So the fact that I'm like shilling sort of right now for Smashbox has nothing to do with the fact that I'm sponsored. I was doing that long before I was. So yeah, it was kind of a dream situation for me, where it's like the product that you use and love to use and we're like recommending to all your friends anyway, approach you and we're like, hey, how about a partnership? And so I was just like, holy shit, yes, absolutely. So yeah, that was a very good thing, and I'm very happy. And they also sent me a cool carrying case that has saved my life going to tournaments, because man, I do not want to carry this thing on a bus.
Yeah, that thing is really big. It's probably heavy too.
Yes, sorry, in terms of pros and cons, there's the big con. Carrying it around at a tournament kind of sucks. That is the biggest thing that I've noticed. But in a sense, it's also sort of a pro, because I feel like I left my GameCube controller at setups like all the time, because it's so small and easy to just set down and forget about. Whereas this thing, it's on your lap. You can't really just stand up and forget about it, because it'll fall to the ground.
Also, some people will steal your controller.
Yeah, they totally do. And I'm pretty sure it's really hard to get a Smashbox stolen, because for one, you're probably either always holding it or always have it in your bag. It's not really something that you can just set on a table somewhere. And two, I think that it's like pretty hard to just covertly snag because it'll make a huge bulge in your backpack. And especially at Smash tournaments right now, there's not very many people going around with a big square-shaped backpack. Hopefully that'll change in the future, but who knows?
Okay, well, I think that's it. Captain L, thank you again for, coming on and talking with me.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Do you want to just like plug in your like Twitter, your YouTube, or anything like that?
Sure, yeah, it's youtube.com/c/CaptainL, all one word. Twitter is @CaptainLShika.
Thanks again. Hopefully I see you at an event sometime soon. Well, I mean, you're going to main stage, so I'll see you there.
Cool. Well, yeah, I'll see you at main stage then.
Yeah.